Welcome to the Biz Buzz Podcast, where we're talking business. This is a SCORE podcast and go-to resource for entrepreneurs and businesses at every stage, from dreamers and startups to seasoned pros and Fortune 500s. If you're launching, growing, or just thinking about your next big idea, you're in the right place. Each episode, we bring you expert insights, practical tools, and the inspiration you need to take your business to the next level. This is the Biz Buzz, brought to you by the Greater Milwaukee Chamber of Commerce and powered by SCORE Southeast Wisconsin. Now here's your host and SCORE mentor, Jim Rossetti.
Hi, Jim Rossetti here, SCORE mentor. And today, if you're just joining us, we're rolling out these podcasts, and I'm so glad that you're viewing and listening because if you're familiar at all with SCORE, you know that we've got a lot of people that do mentoring, and they do it as a labor of love. Anything from SCORE is nobody is paying for, and that's what we do. So you can learn a whole lot more about SCORE if you just go to score.org, and it'll fill you in with all the details. But today I am talking with one of our mentors, gentleman that I met not too long ago, and I've been super impressed with him. And that's part of what we want to do is the people that mentor our clients are the ones that really are part of the makeup of SCORE that's so important. And there's so many great of people that I'm excited to be showcasing them. So with me today is Chuck Zamora, and Chuck is the founder of a company called The Learning Company. Chuck, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. You're a
Great
recent.
to be with you.
Yeah, thank you. You're recently joining SCORE, is that right? Maybe.
Yeah. I'm a newbie.
Okay. And and that's good because I think in the beginning, but you've got a vast background of experience that you bring to the table for SCORE. And I think it's exciting that we got you.
Well, I'm very happy to be a part of the SCORE program.
So, here's a guy, you spent years and years of your life. You worked for Dun & Bradstreet. I know that.
Yep, did that.
It was what, about 30-year career with Dun & Bradstreet?
The way it all works is that I started my career as an educator. So I taught school. I left the classroom after about 9 years, and I taught teachers. Then I got out of education and went to work for Dun & Bradstreet. I was in their sales department. My first 2 years with them, I won national sales contests back to back. So like every other dumb company, they made me a sales manager. Became relatively successful at doing that, I guess, and ended up a regional vice president with them. And then they offered me the job as the Asia Pacific Regional Training Director. I lived in Australia. They offered me the job as the Asia Pacific Regional Training Director, and my wife said, if they think you're that good, why would you do all that for them? Why don't you just set up your own company? And I quit the next day, and for the last 34 years, I've been running programs on sales and customer service and leadership and conflict resolution and communication skills, a host of programs.
So tell me, in the beginning, setting up that company, you had to go through some trials and tribulations that we all do in business, I'm sure. So how long did it take you to get on that fast track? Did you start out with clients, or did you have to go find clients?
No, I had to go find them. So what I did is I was talking to my accountant about it, and he said, look, I know a guy that runs a training company, and I think he's a pretty good trainer. Sorry, he said, I think he's a pretty good manager of systems, but I don't think he's a very good trainer. And he said, Chuck, I think you're probably going to be a very good trainer, but you're not very good at managing systems. So you should maybe join forces with this guy. And so I got a hold of him, and he and I joined forces.
Okay.
And so I was writing and developing workshops, and he was helping with the structure of the business. How do you set it all up and get it all going? And then because I was pretty good at selling, I built a clientele pretty quickly. And then he and I parted because I was producing the bulk of the income and I didn't need him anymore. And that's when I set the company up.
Okay. So you were able to cut him loose, but he was kind of a mentor then for you in the beginning, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he had some workbooks and he had developed some systems and that were very beneficial to me, but he was a pretty ordinary trainer. And so once I understood what he was doing and how he did it, then I wrote my own material and I then set the company up.
Did you wind up having to get employees and other people involved, or were they independent contractors maybe?
No, I had employees. I didn't have a big staff. In the whole time that I've been in business, I've had a personal assistant and a researcher. And most of my business, quite honestly, in the last, not since I've been, most of the business has been generated by me, so I was selling and then running the programs. But I got to a stage, and it's kind of where I am now, where most of my business is just repeat and referral business. So I don't go out and do a lot of selling because we've got a pretty good base.
Yeah. So you've got now established clients. You probably reoccurring clients. You don't really have to go chasing brand new business. But in the beginning, I think you had to do what a lot of our SCORE clients have to do and get familiar with. And many of them don't have that sales background, the skill set that you've got to really find those clients.
No question. And I think that's one of the things that I can help. And the reason I got involved in SCORE was to help those young entrepreneurs that want to build a business. Maybe they've got a really good product or a really good service or a really good idea, but how do I get that to market? Well, I can tell you, and again, it's a little bit different today, but back then, the best way to share how I did it, that when I moved to America 20 years ago, I knew nobody in Wisconsin except my mother-in-law and my father-in-law. That was it. And so I joined 3 chambers of commerce. I joined a Rotary Club. I went to every networking event that was anywhere close to my home, within an hour's drive. I networked myself constantly all day, every day. And today, 90% of my business is repeat and referral.
That is valuable information, I think, for anybody listening to this is what you did develop. You went out and actually built a sphere of influence, I would call it.
I did. There's no question. Back then I had a business card that folded out. But it was square and it had everything that I taught. It had every one of my courses and it had some testimonials. And everywhere I went, I had a pocket full of those and I handed to people. And one of the things, I also write weekly quotes that go out to about 1,000 people around the world. And the very first quote I ever wrote was that you only have to be marginally different to be exceptional, because if you had to be exceptionally different, few would be.
Like that.
And so my business card was square. It wasn't the typical business card size. And then it folded out so that people could look at it and understand everything that I did.
Yeah, and that's so important because, in the beginning, you've got to kind of badger people with it because they're not sure how they can interact with your company. So they got to be educated a little bit. And you did something that saved you a whole lot of explaining every time you met a new person, which is great. Yes. Yeah, I like that. And then one of the things I mentor, just like you do. I've been doing it for over 20 years, Chuck, with SCORE.
Wow.
And I've met hundreds and hundreds of businesses, and probably the biggest drawback and the thing that kills people's enthusiasm and makes them give up, throw in the sponge, is trying to build clientele. Because nobody knows about them. I mean, they're brand new, and they got to realize that before you can start doing business, you got to have an audience or people to serve,
Sure.
So,
yeah, I mean, I think that today it's a little different. I'm not good at this, the difference.
right.
But today, a lot of people depend on the technology.
Right.
So they join LinkedIn and they get on Facebook and they they do as many things they can electronically. Whereas I was like just a foot soldier. I went to every event. I went to anything where there were people that were breathing. I went, and I still think that's a smart thing to do. I mean, if I was going to set up a business today, I would network myself as like crazy, and again, I go back to what I said earlier. When I moved to America, I knew 2 people in Wisconsin. That was it. And I had to build a business. And so I went out every day and every night and joining all kinds of different clubs and programs and associations until I got known.
That's amazing, because you're exactly saying what I tell my clients is you've got to go out and maybe do, back in 2020, we had the COVID thing. It kind of shut everything down for a while. And that was a tough year. But if anything good came out of COVID, it was probably something like using Zoom and some of these platforms like we're using right now.
Sure.
It enabled people to do that. Technology has helped in some ways, but in other ways, it's been people depend on it too much, and it becomes kind of plastic. When you go out and meet personally individuals, your personality, your demeanor comes through to people. They can know you, like you, trust you, and I think that's what you're building.
Well, I even think as a SCORE mentor, I try to do, and I've only done, I'm brand new to it, but I've done like 3 mentoring sessions now. But I have pushed the people to find a time and a place where we can meet face to face and sit down and talk. I don't like trying to be a mentor sort of just over a Zoom call or over a phone call. And I think they have been very successful.
Yeah. How have you found it so far since you've been mentoring? Has it been something, how have you found the reception of people that you're dealing with?
I think that it's no different to the people that pay me thousands of dollars to do it. It's just that they get it for free.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think that they have been very thankful that SCORE is there and that I have been able to spend an hour and a half with them and talk them through some things, But I think what's important is that, like with you, I have worked out things that work and I've worked out things that don't work. And those people are so young, or young in their business, they haven't worked that out yet. And sometimes we can help them through the process because we've already worked out what doesn't work and what does work.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, do you feel that because we're not getting paid and we're not charging them for mentoring in our time, that do you think they value it?
Yes, I do. I actually do. I think that they're so caught up. Well, again, I've only done 3, but they're so caught up in trying to get this business up and running and having it be successful. And they're so caught up in the things that they're doing that it's almost like a breath of fresh air that they can actually get some people like you and I that have been through the hard roads of building a business and can help them, and they don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to do it. Once they realize, wow, this guy's been where I was, and he's learned the lessons, and he's willing to share that with me for free. What a blessing.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think I've run across both people that really do appreciate it and tell me that. And we can't even accept somebody to buy us a lunch if they wanted to. We don't take any remuneration for the time that we spend with them. And I try to get on a steady routine so we can meet maybe once a week or at least once a month and just have sessions and figure out what have you encountered since our last meeting. And then we can kind of sift through that and see how, from what they've encountered, and a lot of them hit, brick walls trying to open doors. It can be very frustrating, as you and I both know.
Sure.
But learning how to accept, take a little rejection is part of the learning process, and not to give up at the first sign of a hurdle they might have to jump.
Oh, absolutely. I jumped a lot of hurdles.
I have too. And I've had people come back to me, I've tried one bank and they're not willing to give me any startup money because there's no collateral, and I wanted them to totally fund my idea, and they're not even sold on my idea. So they got to be understanding that they're going to encounter that. So the better they can work on their approach before they start knocking on doors of banks or whoever they're going to use for their startup capital, which in the beginning is usually friends, family, and we say fools. But if they can't get it there, they're trying to find it maybe through the SBA, or some of them are looking for grants and different ways to fund it. But some of them are starting with just what they have.
That's what I did.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have a big fancy whatever to go out and solicit, if you don't even have a business suit, you can go out and get that at a thrift store.
Yep.
Just a few dollars, and you can dress yourself up and do just like you did, and put your best foot forward with what you've got. Not with if you're going to stand back and wait until you've got all these little toys and all the stuff that, all the fancy bells and whistles that you'll have maybe when you're bigger and get, you're going to find yourself, in a tough place to get comfortable with, and they get discouraged that way.
Sure.
So what, now that you're on board, what do you think of what SCORE is doing here and offering? What are your views of SCORE? I think you've told me that you're happy that you joined SCORE. Now that you're in it, how do you feel?
I think it's a great organization. I'm very I'm sure that I will like it even more when I do more mentoring. I've only done like 3 sessions. I was very surprised that sometimes people say they want a SCORE mentor, and then they don't. You never can seem to get them on the phone or get them to a table to actually do stuff. And I don't quite understand that, but that's part and parcel.
That is one of the things I've been dealing with. I told you I've been on board over 20 years with SCORE. And I think the biggest complaint I could have is that people are not always receptive, with your, they tend to let things get in the way. Distractions come into their life. Instead of setting a mindset that, hey, I'm working with a SCORE mentor now, and I'm going to set up regular meetings with that SCORE mentor, whether it be a him or her, whatever it is. And I'm going to be accessible, because sometimes I've got to chase them, a lot to get them to even connect with me so we can have another mentoring session.
Yeah, and I guess maybe I have to learn that. I'm not really good at chasing people, No. I'm not going to keep calling people and chasing them and sending them emails and making phone calls to try to get somebody that I can provide some value to at no cost. I'm, you know,
You know what I've been doing, Chuck, to kind of counteract that a little bit, and I think it's worked in some cases, not all. But I try to, in my first session, I call it a get acquainted. I just want to get acquainted with them and they get acquainted with me so that we can determine what's the best way that you like to be contacted. Is it by text? Is it by email? Is it by a phone call? Is it by snail mail? Whatever. And try to set the tone there. I say, look, I'm giving you some of my valuable time because I think you're worth it, and I want to see you succeed in this business. But if you're going to succeed, I think you've got to show me that you're really serious with this mentoring that we're doing, and you can do that by responding. Even if you can't make a meeting, you can just respond and say, "Hey, not available this day, but I'll be available so and so we can schedule or whatever we got to do." And then don't forget the rescheduling. So I think it's just as important for us, for the SCORE clients to understand that, yes, we are doing this free. And that's why I asked you, sometimes they may not appreciate or value. And I think they do appreciate, but they get distractions. And by removing those distractions, they can focus better on what they're doing, setting up a business. And it is serious stuff if you're going to be serious about having.
absolutely.
You agree? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they don't know all the pieces that need to be put together.
Now, I've got what I call a one-page business plan. It's a very simple. There's 8 items on this one-page business plan. Very simple. And I say, I'm going to send this over to you, and I want you to look it over. There's 8 questions on there, or 8 items that they need to address. And they're the very, very basics, like, a simple marketing plan. But the very first question is about your values, about what your values are in the business and who you are, what you're trying to convey to your prospective business clients. I try to get that. And then the rest of them are the pretty standard stuff, the numbers, and that's where people dread, keeping score.
Sure.
Any kind of accounting. I hated it. But it was a necessary evil.
Yes.
So if they answer these 5 questions, I take a look at what they've done. They send me over that finished page, and then I can kind of pick out on there what they told me, and we can work on those things one by one. And usually after those 8 things are addressed, they've got a better understanding of what the game plan is all about. It's just like building a sports team or building a building. You've got to build a foundation before you can build stories, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what I try to get across to them. And it's always not easy, Chuck. It's not because if they're a first timer in business, they have no concept of what we're talking about. But they pick it up after a few sessions with them. They start to get the game.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's really important that people, like, one of the things that I developed a while ago is I think people need to understand that business should be fun. All right?
Yes.
And I took that word and I use it as an acronym. And I think the reason my business has been successful and others that I have worked with have become successful is based on this concept of fun. And fun stands for you and everybody in your organization is focused on a or the goal. The U stands for united as a team. Everybody has to be on the same page and be united as a team. And where most organizations fail is in the end, which is nurtured by the leader. But if you are focused on a goal, you're united as a team, and then your organization, your people, even if it's just one or two at the beginning, if they are nurtured by the leader, you have a much better chance of winning.
Yeah, you are so right. They set the tone.
Yep.
They are, yeah. If they don't have to do the work all the time, they may have employees or independent contractors, but they have to set the tone. That means they have to show that they're taking it seriously. If they find a tagline for their business and they're not living it or doing it, they're not setting the tone. They're probably sending out messages that are confusing to their associates and people they're trying to work with.
Sure.
So I think that's a big key. And you mentioned something else when you said, yes, it's got to be fun. Networking can be fun. Prospecting can be fun. It's tough, but it can be fun. But what I like, Chuck, and what I try to establish with my clients is build a network of referrals. And that's what you've done and what you've said in the beginning with your businesses. You went out there and made those contacts, made them aware of you and your company and what you do and how you do it and how it can benefit them. And I think you set yourself up for getting referred business.
I was telling a group the other day that in my 20th year in business, my business grew by 18%. And that's big growth.
And what year was that? You said the first year?
No, my 20th year.
20th year, okay.
After being in business 20 years, my business grew by 18%. And I often say to people, and I'm proud to tell you that, but I'm also ashamed because it grew by 20% and I did not make a single cold call. No one in my organization made a cold call. That growth came from referral business and repeat business.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that, I think the biggest thing people get so discouraged if they're out knocking on doors or out prospecting or however they're doing it, and they get no responses, and they start to get discouraged and hang their head like it's not going to work. If you believe in it and it's a good product, a good service, and you know that it is, and you're convinced that it is, you won't get discouraged. You'll keep on keeping on. That takes a mindset, and that's really, and most of the people we deal with, maybe they've never had that kind of mindset. Maybe they've kind of gotten in the habit, and we set our own habits and biases in life. Sometimes they can be a brick wall for us. They stand in our way. We've got to kind of get beyond that area of our life where we start to doubt ourselves and doubt what we're doing.
Sure.
Got to come back to basics and come back to the beginning. And any good coach that I've ever listened to, I love football. I think football is a great metaphor for life. You've got an offense and a defense, and somebody's trying to stop you constantly and having any success to get in that goal that you're trying to reach.
Yep.
But coaching means strategizing. Coaching means how do I get around, over, and beyond my opposition? And that's what football teaches me. And some of the basics in football, I look at the best coaches, and they kind of focus on the basics. They don't get hung up in all the glitz and glitter. That'll come a little later, but what they try to do is go back to blocking, tackling, running, passing, and hiking the ball.
Let me just go back a moment.
Yeah.
You used a word that I have thought a lot about and have I have a very strong opinion. One of the things I think people, especially maybe newer people in business and people that we're mentoring,
Sure.
is that they get really focused on the competition. All right? But I think what they need to think about is that everybody that is providing the same service or selling the same product, everybody is in opposition. You decide if they're competition. Right? And I think
Absolutely.
it's so important that I might have an automobile dealership and there might be one down the road and they're in opposition, but I get to determine how effective they are in competing against me.
Chuck, you are so spot on with what and I'm glad you brought it up, because I drive down streets and cities and I look around, I see one bank and sometimes 2 or 3 banks in the same block.
Sure.
And I wonder, how do they all survive? I mean, why would somebody pick one over the other? And, but they all seem to be operating in business for a long length of time. So obviously, each one has found that niche that makes them a little different than that competitor down the street. They're offering something that the opposition is not offering, and they're doing it, and they're making it their unique selling proposition. I call it the USP.
Well, it's interesting, and USP has been used for a long, long time. I think that we need to understand that in our business. But when I was in sales and I was with Dun & Bradstreet,
yeah,
I used to say to people, there are other organizations that provide the services that we provide. There are other organizations that just provide the service we provide that maybe could be even less expensive. But the one thing that you can never get from any of them is me. And I'm worth it. I become the UPS or the USP, the Unique Selling Proposition. Yeah. I become the reason that you want to come to my store or have my service or have me come out and fix your water heater or whatever it is. And I think people need to understand that, is that unless people have to buy you before they'll buy your product or service.
It goes back to what I said earlier. It's that know you, like you, trust you that has to be established before you'll even get a referral from anybody. They got to know you, like you, trust you. And the nice thing about that is the referral that comes from that individual, you don't have to sell them. They're already sold, because somebody that knows you, likes you, and trusts you is the one that gave that referral. And the people they gave it to know them and like them and trust them, so they really don't have to sell anymore. Don't start selling them because they're ready to buy. But you are so spot on. You have to have value in yourself. Believe that what you're bringing to the table with this business idea is different, and you're delivering it in a way that nobody else can, because they're not you.
I built my whole business around that.
That is, and boy, you hit it right on the head, though. I'm so glad you brought that out on this podcast today, and I want people that might be listening to be able to hear that and pick up on it, especially for somebody like you that's been, over 30 years in your own business and had to start from scratch and build it. And you had to jump over I'm sure there was tons of other people doing similarities to what you're doing. But you brought something. Yeah.
I mean, and when I moved back to the United States, I remember saying to my wife, in Australia, I was a big fish in a little pond. I was held on contract by Citibank. I was held on contract by Toyota Motor Corporation. I was held on contract by a company called Boral, a billion-dollar company. Those people paid me an annual fee, and I had to commit so many hours a month to them. I had a pretty successful business. And I said to my wife, when we moved to the United States, that I was now going to, I wasn't going to be a big fish in a little pond. I was going to be a minnow in a bloody ocean. And I not only going to be a minnow in an ocean, I'm going to be an unknown minnow in an ocean. And therefore, I had to become known. And that's when that whole networking piece really started to play, became so valuable, you know. But one of the things I want, if we have listeners and they're new to business, I think one of the most important things that they need to learn is that you only need to be marginally different to be exceptional. Because if you had to be exceptionally different, few would be. And so you just have to be a little bit sharper, a little bit quicker, a little bit smarter, a little bit. You have to have everything's got to be a little bit better. You know, a guy comes to my house, going to work on my washing machine or my dishwasher or do some plumbing, and his truck is clean and tidy. His toolbox is clean and tidy. He's clean and tidy. It tells me that he has pride. Yeah. And then I'm going to probably endorse that. And I'll say to someone, well, next time if you need a plumber, I'll tell you they got to call. As opposed to the guy that comes in here with dirty shoes, dirty pants, a filthy truck. You know, I have a client in Australia. It's a landscaping contracting company. They probably have about 10 vehicles, some dump trucks and that, but they also got backhoes and stuff. But I will tell you, at the end of the day, every vehicle, every tractor, every backhoe gets washed down, gets cleaned, and when they go out on the road the next morning, their vehicles are spotless.
Boy, that is what gold there. That's a gold nugget. Thank you, Chuck.
I mean, it just, you know, and when you see, it's called Centenary Landscaping. When you see Centenary Landscaping down the road, they're not these big dirty trucks. They're white. Their trucks are painted white and green, and they are always spotless. You know, his people. I've got another company called Mini Movers, and they do local moving for households and stuff. Every one of his people meet in the morning and have breakfast at the yard. They've got a cafeteria, and they all sit down. They eat as much as they want to eat. Then they all put on clean uniforms every day and go out and hit it. Is there any question that business hasn't just grown like crazy?
Yeah. You hit a spot. I was going to use I was referred to an auto repair guy, you know, had an auto repair shop. And it just turned out to be somebody, I knew where they lived. I knew where their business was. And when I first came to their shop, I didn't want to sit down. I didn't want to touch it because it was just a mess. So there was grease. There was, you know, when I walked out into the shop, I was stepping over tools that were kind of strewn all over the place. In other words, it was clutter, just pure clutter. So I drove by his house one day. I wanted to use this person because it was convenient to be using him. And I heard good things about his work. So he did the work, and he did it well. But I drove by and he had, his whole yard was cluttered. So it looked to me like I just felt uncomfortable by using his services because I always felt, look, I need my car to run smooth and well, so I I don't want to, I didn't want to take it there because of that. So you hit right on something that really makes a difference in the way they do business. So, Chuck, listen,
I don't think there's any question.
Chuck, we've been going here I really think that you have put some information out there today that's really helpful. I'm so excited that you were willing to come on and be one of our first guests on this podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Hey, listen, and I tell you what, talking to you, I've picked up a few things I guess I knew, but it was good to have them refreshed in my mind, and you did that.
That's good.
So we're so this SCORE chapter is really privileged to have you as one of the members and on board, because I can just tell by talking to you today, if I was a client, I would be showing up for each one of our sessions and saying thank you, Chuck.
Well, I'll just, if we're wrapping this up, I'll share something that I think is really interesting. I was working with a SCORE client, and she was struggling with an assistant manager. It was a small organization, but she had a few employees and she had an assistant manager. And she was hell-bent on me helping her develop what did she call it? She wanted to create a plan for this guy. A job description. That's what she said. Yeah. She needed to have a job description for this assistant manager. And she wanted me to help her write it. And I said to her, and I've taught this now for years. I said, I don't write job descriptions. And I would tell you that I think that is like one step of being totally stupid to do. And she looked at me kind of funny, because obviously there's been a lot of people who over the years have written scores of stuff on job descriptions and how important they are. And I said, here's what I teach. What I want you to do, instead of writing a job description for this guy in your store who is your assistant manager, what I want you to do is take that role and list all of the results you want from that role. So as an assistant manager, I need this done, this done, this done, this done, this done, and this done. These are the things that are really important that as the assistant manager, I need you to focus on. These are the results at the end of the day you need to think about. Give him that, and then have him, over the next 2 weeks, write a job description on how he is going to accomplish those results. And then you sit down with him and go over his job description of how he's going to get these things done. Because what I know is if he writes the job description based on the results that you want, he's going to do it because he owns it.
Oh, I love it. You let him write his own job description.
Of course.
Yeah, what a marvelous idea.
And if he writes there's a basic result that you want, and he writes a job description that's kind of stupid, well, help him rewrite it, but let him own it. But it was kind of like, and I always use this as a simple example, but I've only had 3 personal assistants in my entire career, but each one of them, I said, these are the results I want. These are the things that in the role as my personal assistant, these are the things that are musts. I want you to take the next 2 weeks, work with me, and then come back to me with your job description on how you're going to meet all these results. But the example I always give, is when I get to work in the morning, I want all of the correspondence on my desk. I don't care if you pick it up from the post office the night before and bring it in, or you pick it up on your way in the morning. I don't give a rip how you get it to my desk. Just get it to my desk. You work out what's going to be the best way for you to do it. Now, once they start writing out their job descriptions and you think this is not going to work because history tells me it's not going to work, then help them work on that. But if they write it, they own it. When they own it, they do it. When they do it, it gets done.
Yeah. And if you critique it, you can help them with the critique.
Absolutely.
And then, but at the end of the day, just like you said, they are the ones that engineered it. They wrote it, and they should be able to, execute it without any
Well, not
problems.
only that, it also shows them that you trust them.
I like that. Yeah, I picked that up too. You're not having to micromanage people.
No, God, I've never micromanaged anybody. I hate that.
And when you micromanage, people lose faith in themselves because they think you don't trust that they can do anything without you looking over their shoulder.
Yep.
And boy, what a golden nugget that is, Chuck.
Well, that's good.
This has been just a fascinating time. I'm so glad you were willing to carve out a little time today to do this interview, because it just, to me, lets people see the type of quality we have in our mentors and the people that are standing by, waiting to help businesses that need that help.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful organization, and after being in business for as long as I have, and having relatively a successful career, how nice is it that I found an organization that allows me to give back?
Yeah,
and can do that with people who probably couldn't afford me, all right? But they get me because I'm in SCORE.
Well, you've hit the nugget right on the head. So, Chuck, I want to thank you again so much if folks haven't, your name is Zamora, Zamora.
Yep.
Because they can go and pick mentors on our website. They can select who they want to be mentoring. And I think a lot of people will see this and are, I want to get Chuck Zamora on board.
Well, I would be honored to help. At the end of the day, I have been, for a fee, I have been mentoring people for 34 years.
Yeah.
I have literally trained thousands of salespeople. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of leaders in organizations. But there's a lot of people who come to SCORE that are newbies in the business. They don't have a lot of money, and they could never afford you or me. But when they are able to get us for nothing through SCORE, how do you not help them?
I feel that way too. It does my heart good. If I work with somebody that's just coming on board and they're starting with, just like you said, with very little knowledge at all about launching a business. And at the end of the day, maybe we're together I had one guy that's been a client of mine for 10 years.
Wow.
And he was a police officer in Chicago. And he moved to Wisconsin. And he was going to start a little cleaning business, professional cleaning business for offices and commercial places and so forth. And he had no website. He had no idea what a website was. He had no idea of incorporating himself if he needed to do that, or just any of the basics, and nothing, zero. And took me about a year working with him. By the end of that year, we had and he was out knocking. He was willing to go out and make the calls in this clinic. The guy was a policeman. He never in his life, did anything like that. Didn't know the first thing about launching a business. And by the end of that first year, he was pretty well educated because he had a flow. The biggest problem he had at the end of the year was finding people to go out and do the cleaning for him.
Sure.
Recruiting the people. But even that, we just like with what you just described, would have been fabulous information for him as far as laying out some kind of job description, because he never did. And he expected them to have it in their head, but they didn't. So they couldn't.
Yeah, I just find, getting back to, I just find that in my business and people I work with, you just have to be results driven.
Yeah.
You know, these are results I need to have by the end of the day, end of the week, end of the month, end of the quarter. But it's about results. And when you bring somebody on board, if they understand these are the results that are required out of this role, but wow, this my boss is going to let me work out how best to do it. It means I trust you. It means I'm going to work with you. It means I value you. There's all kinds of things that come into it when you allow them to write their job description, and then if they don't have it right, help them tidy it up.
I remember over the years of my experience on jobs that I had taken, I had those in the past.
Me too.
I cut loose of them when I started my own business, but I remember a lot of times they gave me a boilerplate description of a job that they had gotten from somewhere else. And they thought, well, I'll give this to people that I hire. And I saw a lot of things on there that really looked nonsensical to me. I didn't think they were that important, and they weren't. But the things that were the most important, I picked out of the job description, and I went back to the employer and said, these are the things that you really, really emphasize on here that have to be done. And some of these other things, if I have time, I can do them, right? And they said, yeah, you figured that out. So I found that what they gave me, they didn't even look at and see what was on the job description. They just gave me a sheet of paper and said, here, use this, and expected me to figure that out. But boy, you made it, you described it. And I can see why you're successful in business and why your business has been successful over the years. Yeah. Chuck, I'm totally fascinated. This has been a great experience for me today. So
well, thank you very much. I have to tell you, it's been great for me. Being new to SCORE and being invited onto your podcast is an honor.
We're going to be taking a look at a lot. We've got about 90 mentors in the Southeast Wisconsin chapter now. We're getting some pretty good people that are, not that the people we've had weren't good, but we're really getting some exceptional people that are coming on board, and I'm so excited to see that. You being one of them, and your background and everything, you are a perfect fit for a SCORE mentor. So if somebody's watching this and you feel that you'd like to consider SCORE as a possible place to volunteer, we're always open to that, Chuck. So I'm putting that out there for people. So,
okay.
You have a great day, and you and I will be talking. I'm going to call you up and pick your brain a little bit for over a cup of coffee. I'll give you a call, and we can set that up sometime.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, Chuck.
All right. Bye-bye.
Have a good day. All right, brother.
Thanks for tuning in to the Biz Buzz, powered by SCORE Southeast Wisconsin and brought to you by the Greater Milwaukee Chamber of Commerce. If you found today's episode helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend, fellow entrepreneur, or business leader. Want more resources or mentorship support? Visit us at score.org to connect with a local mentor and keep your business moving forward. Until next time, keep hustling, keep dreaming, and keep building your business with SCORE.